Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. We are from Group 32 and we will be presenting about the scandal of 1MDB for the subject Integrity and Anti-Corruption. I would like to introduce our group members. These are the contents that we've included in our slide presentation.
Assalamualaikum and good morning to Mr. Azmi. My name is Jalila and I'm going to begin my presentation regarding to the introduction to our case report on the 1MDB or One Malaysia Development Berhad scandal. Corruption and financial misconduct are among the greatest challenges to big governments because they undermine public trust, weaken accountability, and can have serious economic consequences. One of the most significant examples of this in Malaysia is the 1MDB scandal, which gains widespread national and international attention to the issue of corruption, money laundering, abuse of power, and the misappropriation of the public fund. Although 1MDB was originally established as a government-owned strategic investment fund to support Malaysian economic development, the case later evolved into one of the world's largest financial scandals. It involved multiple countries, financial institutions, and law enforcement agencies, making it a global issue rather than one of the affecting only Malaysia. The 1MDB scandal had far-reaching consequences, including political changes, economic losses, damage to Malaysia international reputation, and a decline in public confidence in government institutions. At the same time, it highlighted the importance of transparency, integrity, accountability, and strong governance in managing public resources. In this report, we will discuss further into the background of the 1MDB, its chronology, the mechanism behind the scandal, and the key individuals involved, its consequences and implications, the investigation conducted by local and international authorities, as well as the lessons that can be learned from this case. With that, now I will hand over to the next presentation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Alia Zahra binti Rosnan and I will be presenting about the background and establishment of 1MDB. So to start with, 1MDB, or also known as One Malaysia Development Berhad, was established in 2009 as a government-owned strategic investment company to promote Malaysia's economic development. Originally, it was founded as the Terengganu Investment Authority, which is in short TIA. It was a sovereign wealth fund aimed at supporting Terengganu's economic growth. So, TIA raised 5 billion ringgit through government-guaranteed bonds before being taken over by the federal government and renamed it 1MDB. So, 1MDB focused on investments in key sectors such as energy, real estate, and tourism. Major projects included the Tun Razak Exchange, which is famously known as TRX, planned as an international financial hub. The company financed its projects mainly through large-scale borrowing and bond issuances. Over time, concerns emerged regarding financial transparency, corporate governance, and rising debt levels. By 2015, investigations into 1MDB were launched in several countries, leading to what became one of the world's largest financial scandals.
Okay, next, I'm going to present about the chronology of the 1MDB case. The 1MDB scandal began in 2009 when the Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Najib Razak, established One Malaysia Development Berhad as a state-owned investment fund. Its main objective was to promote Malaysia's economic development by attracting foreign investment and financing strategic projects. In the same year, 1MDB entered into a joint venture with Petro Saudi International, marking the beginning of its investment activities. Between 2012 and 2030, 1MDB expanded rapidly by launching the Tun Razak Exchange project and raising billions of US dollars through bond issues arranged by Goldman Sachs. However, despite this ambitious investment, the fund accumulated substantial debt, raising concern over its financial management. In 2015, the scandal gained widespread public attention after a thorough report, PH, and the Wall Street Journal published a report alleging that large sums of money linked to 1MDB had been transferred into Najib Razak's personal bank accounts. This allegation triggered public outrage, government investigation, and intense political debate. In 2016, the scandal became international as authorities in the United States, Switzerland, and Singapore launched investigations into the alleged misappropriation and laundering of 1MDB funds. The United States Department of Justice described the case as one of the largest kleptocracy investigations in its history and sought to recover billions of dollars in assets. Following Malaysia's 2018 general election, the new government led by Mahathir Mohamad reopened investigations into the scandal. Najib Razak was arrested and charged with multiple offences, while authorities posed bank accounts and seized luxury assets believed to have been purchased using misappropriated 1MDB funds. From 2019 and onwards, several court trials took place involving Najib Razak, his family members, Joe Low, and other individuals connected to the case. In August 2022, Malaysia Federal Court upheld Najib Razak's conviction in the SRC international case, making him the first former Malaysian Prime Minister to be imprisoned. Most recently, in December 2025, after a 7-year trial, the High Court found Najib Razak guilty of 25 charges of abuse of power and money laundering involving 2.3 billion of 1MDB funds. He was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment and fined 11.4 billion. In conclusion, the 1MDB chronology demonstrates how a fund established to promote national development evolved into one of the world's major financial scandals, highlighting the importance of integrity, transparency, and accountability in managing public resources.
One Malaysian Development Berhad 1MDB was established to fund national development projects such as infrastructure, energy, major real estate development like Tun Rasat Exchange. However, investigation alleged that billions of dollars intended for this project were diverted through a series of complex and concealed financial transactions involving multiple countries and institutions. Funds were reportedly transferred to account controlled by individuals and entities not connected to 1MDB official objective. It was often disguised as legitimate investment, joint venture, or financial repayment. This scandal involved the use of shell companies, where the companies with no real business operation and offshore bank account located in secret places, making ownership and money flow difficult to trace. It was involving complex layering of transaction across multiple companies, banks, and countries, further obscured the movement of funds and complicated regulatory investigation. International financial institutions, including Goldman Sachs, played a role in facilitating bond offering that raised approximately 6.5 billion USD. An investigation later raised a concern that large portion of the fund were allegedly misappropriated shortly after issuance, alongside questions about due diligence, risk management, and unusually high banking fees. The scandal also highlighted weaknesses in global finance governance, compliance system, and regulatory oversight across multiple jurisdictions. Money laundering was also an issue throughout the scandal, as allegedly misappropriated funds were integrated into the financial system throughout the purchase of luxury assets such as real estate, yacht, jewelry, artwork, and also entertainment-related investment. Overall, the 1MDB scandal became one of the largest global financial investigations involving multiple countries, regulators, and enforcement agencies. The key individual and institution involved, including Najib Razak, were the central figures in 1MDB scandal. He was Malaysian Prime Minister and also the chairman of 1MDB Advisor Board during the period in questions. He held significant influence over the fund operation. The investigation found that large sum of money were linked to 1MDB has entered to his personal account. A report shows that Najib Razak has channeled over 2.67 billion ringgit into his personal bank account from 1MDB, where it should be a government-run strategic development company. Next were Joe Low, a Malaysian businessman and financier from Penang. John Low was given the extensive access to the fund due to the high-profile political connection in Malaysia and the Middle East, and also the entertainment connection in the United States. Authorities allege that he coordinated transactions, established offshore entities, and also facilitated the movement of funds through international financial network. John Low also is alleged to have stolen over 4.5 billion USD from the state-owned company 1MDB. Next is Goldman Sachs, an investment bank that played an important role by arranging several bond offerings that raised billions of dollars for 1MDB. The investment bank earned unusually high fees from this transaction, which later attracted scrutiny from regulators. Investigation also concluded that some of the funds raised through the bond issued were misappropriated. Goldman Sachs later reached a settlement with the authorities in multiple countries and acknowledged shortcomings in its oversight process. Last but not least is the regulatory bodies and financial institutions. Agencies in Malaysia, the United States, Singapore, Switzerland, and other jurisdictions conducted inquiries into the movement of funds and potential violation of financial regulations. Banks that process transactions connected to 1MDB face investigation and in some cases, penalties for failures in anti-money laundering compliances.
Next is the investigations and legal proceedings. First of all, the investigations was held in two ways, which is domestically and internationally. For domestic, it was basically held in Malaysia. So basically, the Malaysian authorities and also a special task was
a special task force was formed and established consisting of the MACC, which is the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, Bank Negara Malaysia, Royal Malaysian Police, and AGC, which is the Attorney General of Malaysia, to investigate the suspicious money flows that was going on in 1MDB. Moreover, around $681 million was allegedly transferred into former Prime Minister Najib Razak's personal accounts. And with that being said, more assets, cash, and jewelry linked to the case were seized. And finally, a warrant of arrest was issued to Jolo with 8 charges, including to his father. Next is the investigations that was held internationally. First of all, the investigations involved the United States, Singapore, Switzerland, and the Middle East. The US Department of Justice seized assets, including luxury properties, artworks, and the yacht community. Moreover, the police of Singapore said that the Commercial Affairs Department applied to return around 50.3 million Singapore dollar linked to 1MDB and is approved by the court. Lastly, a Swiss banker and 3 Singaporean private bankers were jailed, including 2 Swiss banks were closed down, including 1 in Singapore. Next is the legal proceedings involving Najib Razak, Jolo, and also Rosman Mansor. First of all, for Najib Razak, in July 2018, he was charged with breach of trust and abuse of power of SRC International. In September 2018, he was charged by MACC and 21 charges by the Royal Malaysian Police. In 2022, he received a 12-year prison sentence for corruption and money laundering. However, in 2024, the sentence was halved. And lastly, in 2025, he was sentenced to yet another additional 15 years of imprisonment. Next, for Jolo, he was charged with 8 charges and also with criminal charges by the Royal Malaysian Police and the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission. However, he fled the country and used another passport, and after 10 years, he still remained as a fugitive. And also, lastly, Kuwaiti court sentenced him to 10 years imprisonment. And lastly, for Rosman Mansor, in October 2018, she was charged with 17 charges for money laundering.
Next, I'll be presenting on the implications and consequences of the 1MDB scandal, focusing on its impact on the economy, social and politics in Malaysia. To begin with, the 1MDB scandal has had serious and long-lasting effect on the Malaysian economy. One of the most significant impacts is in the increasing in the national debt, which exceeded approximately $12 billion. Because of this large financial burden, a substantial amount of public funds had to be redirected toward debt repayment. This situation reduced the government's ability to allocate sufficient funding to important sectors such as healthcare, education, infrastructure, development, and public welfare, which directly affected national development. In addition, the scandal caused a decline in investor confidence. Both local and foreign investors became more cautious due to concern about corruption, weak governance, and lack of transparency. As a result, Malaysia was perceived as a higher risk investment destination, which made it more challenging to attract foreign direct investment. This also slowed down potential economic growth and business expansion opportunities. Furthermore, the scandal severely damaged Malaysia's international reputation. The country's ranking in the Corruption Perception Index declined, reflecting negative global perception regarding governance and accountability. This decline in reputation affected how international organizations and foreign partners viewed Malaysia. Lastly, another major economic consequence was the weakening of the Malaysian ringgit. At one point, the currency dropped to around 4 ringgit 46 cents against the US dollar, driven by reduced investor confidence, financial uncertainty, and negative international sentiment surrounding the scandal. Next, let's look at the political impact. The first impact was the loss of public trust. Many Malaysians lost confidence in the government after the scandal was exposed. People began to question the integrity of the political leaders and government institutions. As a result, there were greater demand for transparency, accountability, and stronger governance to prevent corruption. Another political impact was that the scandal taught important lessons to the citizens. It raised public awareness of how corruption can happen when there is weak oversight. It also highlighted the need for better governance and reminded both leaders and citizens of the importance of honesty and accountability in public service. Next, let's move on the social impact. One major impact was the downfall of Barisan Nasional (BN). Public dissatisfaction over the 1MDB scandal played a key role in BN's defeat in the 2018 general election. This history resulted in BN's long period in power and led to the formation of a new government under Pakatan Harapan. The scandal also contributed to the decline of UMNO.
Its reputation was damaged because of its association with Najib Razak, and the party faced increasing internal divisions. This was reflected in the 2022 general election, where UMNO won only 26 out of 222 parliamentary seats, showing a significant decline in public support.
Next, I will present about lesson learned and recommendations. The 1MDB scandal served as a major warning about what happens when a government funds lack basic transparency and relies on highly centralized decision-making process. When former Prime Minister Najib Razak had total control over both the funds and Ministry of Finance, it completely neutralized the checks and balances meant to protect public money. Because internal controls were weak, it became easy for well-connected figures to use complex networks of offshore shell companies to siphon billions of dollars. This lesson showed that public service is a sacred trust, and when leaders lack accountability, the entire country suffers long-term financial damage that citizens have to pay back for decades. To prevent future financial disaster, government needs to reform how sovereign wealth funds are structured and managed. First, there must be strict laws that completely bar any elected politicians or cabinet minister from holding executive or fiduciary roles inside state-owned enterprise. Instead, this board should only consist of politically independent experts who are heavily vetted by parliament. Furthermore, we need to enforce mandatory parallel auditing by multiple independent firms so that no single entity can be misled, pressured, or suddenly fired to hide irregular transactions. Finally, we need to enforce stricter rules on international banks and heavily protect the people who speak out against corruptions. Any global financial institution that helps more unverified high-volume transactions for politically connected individuals must face automatic legal penalties and operational bans. We also need to continuously upgrade whistleblowers' law so that employees can report massive corporate fraud directly to an independent body without fear of being fired, sued, or silenced by those in power. Restoring public trust is impossible without these strict and transparent guardrails. Finally, in conclusion, the 1MDB scandal is one of the largest financial corruption cases in Malaysia history, exposing serious weakness in governance, transparency, and accountability. While it was originally established to promote national development, the fund became associated with the misappropriation of billions of dollars and abuse of power. The scandal had major economic, political, and reputational consequences, leading to extensive investigations and legal actions. Ultimately, the case highlights the importance of strong governance, ethical leadership, transparency, and effective oversight to protect public funds and prevent similar scandals in the future.